Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, bloggers, business owners and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. Coming up in today's show, Facebook introduces instant video, LinkedIn now supports hashtags, how to confuse a millennial. I interview Marialice Curran and my daughter Sophie about digital citizenship. My shoutouts, Digital Citizenship Summit USA and Digicit Kids. My featured column, how do we protect young minds online? And the social media tool that will save your working week.
Social media news.
The battle for social media prowess rages on with big announcements from the social networks every week. While we may have believed Facebook had peaked and would run its course 2 years ago, this is certainly not now the case. They rival Google on targeted advertising, rival YouTube with Facebook Live, and are now putting up the fight to Snapchat with instant video. Instant video in Facebook Messenger adds another layer of video functionality for Facebook's 1.65 billion users worldwide. Facebook has described video as ubiquitous and says they are simply reacting to users' expectations to have the ability to record video in real time, all the time. What's the hype with hashtags? Well, if you want to know, check out my blog post of the same name. News from LinkedIn tells us that they are now supporting hashtags, which are included in your posts or others. You can click on them, which will lead you to search results, where you can discover other posts with the same hashtag. Simply add a hashtag to your post and it will be automatically available publicly, or if you want it only to be visible to your connections, you can easily change your sharing settings. As with other social networks, you can also search for a hashtag to see all public posts tagged with it. It's great news, hashtag LinkedIn. And finally, have you seen the trending hashtag on Twitter, how to confuse a millennial? It's taken the Twitter world by storm and by all accounts, millennials are fighting back. So please tweet me your favourite contribution using hashtag how to confuse millennials to tweets by JSB.
JSB's column.
How do you protect young minds online? In this week's column, I'm going to have that very conversation with my daughter Sophie. Sophie and I have co-authored a suite of e-learning courses and resources for parents, teens and teachers. We developed Young Minds Online 3 years ago after working hard on our own social media boundaries as mother and daughter. So Sophie, you're now 21 years old. Tell us first of all about your early social media days.
I suppose when I was growing up, social media wasn't as prominent as it is now. It's a big part of my life. I can't imagine life without social media. I think I joined Facebook when I was 13 with the clause that I would be your friend.
That was the rule that we set down.
Yeah, I don't regret it. I hear people complaining all the time now that they're friends with their parents on Facebook and that now they're all other parents are trying to join Snapchat. They can't figure it out.
But you know, when you were 13 and Facebook was really, really new and social media was very new and parents admittedly were scared of it. And I have to say I was too. But we had an approach where there were rules for you, but there were also rules for me. Did that work for you?
Yeah, definitely. If you set it out from the start, then everyone knows what to do, what not to do, and it's clear transparency.
So it led us to develop a little resource for parents that is still going strong 3 years later. It's the Young Minds Online social media contract for parents and teens. Tell us about it.
So it's not just a contract for the parents to tell their children what not to do. It's more of an agreement and an understanding between parents and young people on how they should act, how they shouldn't act, and sets out, if something goes wrong, then what are going to be the consequences. But it's good. It's something that, even if it's not written down, every parent and child should have that understanding. They should set it out from the beginning whenever a child is starting on social media.
Because I don't think that in this day and age that you're ever going to achieve banning social media from your children's lives? As I've already said in the show many times, social media is ubiquitous. Everybody's using it, and even if your kids aren't using it before your very eyes, they're probably using it behind your back.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a big mindset, I think, between or for parents that, you know, there's a separation between their children's online life and their actual life, but it's not. That's not the way it is anymore. It's all connected as one. Like, we don't see it as, you know, oh, this is Facebook, this is a social networking site. We see it as, you know, this is my life and I'm sharing it with everyone.
So given that we have been working on our own use of good digital citizenship from a family perspective, how important is it to you that you now share that knowledge and understanding to empower other parents and other kids around the world?
Yeah, it's extremely important. You know, there's not many people out there that are sharing, you know, that it's not just do it this way or don't do it this way and protect yourself online. It's about actually using it for a bigger cause. That, you know, there's so many opportunities out there for young people and even adults that, you know, social media it's fun and it's part of your life, and, you know, being able to share that with people and saying that it's all good. It's exciting.
So tell us about your own friends and your social network. Do you think that digital citizenship is a concept that they understand?
Definitely not. I don't think they even have ever heard the phrase digital citizenship. Whenever we announced that we were going to be speaking in America, and I told my friends and I posted it on Facebook, and everyone was asking me, oh, what are you going to be speaking about? And I'd say, oh, digital citizenship, and they'd look at me with a blank face because they just didn't understand what it was, and I'd have to say, oh, it's, you know, about, you know, ethical, safe use, savvy use of the internet, but also using it for opportunities and making connections with people online, and they just think it's stupid and silly, and they don't get the actual bigger picture behind it, that this is a big movement that's going forward. And
so probably in the early days of when you were using social media, your mum was embarrassing. How do you find working with me on this topic of digital citizenship? Do I still embarrass you, or?
Yeah, I was just about to say that embarrassment hasn't stopped. No, I'm joking. No, I love working with you on it. I think we bring out the best in each other and we bounce well whenever we work together. You know, we're very similar and like-minded, and we have the same views and opinions, which helps.
And how cool is it going to be for us to go to San Francisco, your first time, and speak on a stage in Twitter headquarters?
Even to go it's to the actual summit is exciting, but to actually be asked to speak at it just makes it, you know, so much more exciting. So
you are pursuing a career in accountancy, maybe saying a farewell to Digital Training Institute or digital marketing, but will you remain involved in the work of digital citizenship?
Yeah, I definitely will. Whenever I explain it to people, I say that my work in digital citizenship is kind of like my corporate social responsibility. And yeah, I definitely want to keep it up. I want to spread the word. And even though it's completely different to accountancy, it's, you know, it's very close to me.
So, Sophie, thank you, and we will keep you in studio because we're now off to Connecticut to speak to the co-founder of Digital Citizenship Summit USA, Marialice Curran.
Interview.
In this week's show, I'm joined by one of the leading lights on digital citizenship in the world. Marialice Curran is trailblazing this relatively new space along with her 9-year-old son, Curran. I first met Marialice and Curran in Bournemouth in the UK earlier this year when we shared a stage at the Digital Citizenship Summit. However, we were connected long before this on Twitter. Sophie and I's interest in this topic led us to connect with the global voices on Digicit, and it's been the most remarkable journey for us over the past 12 months. Marialice, thank you so much for joining Sophie and I from Connecticut, and you're welcome to JSB Talks Digital.
Oh, Joanne, Sophie, I'm so happy. The only thing that would make me happier if I was actually in your studio with both of you right now.
Listen, you've been doing so much amazing work in the space of digital citizenship for quite a number of years, but let's start at the beginning and give our listeners some information and a little bit of background about who Marialice Curran is.
The story starts back in a middle school with young adolescents. I started teaching in 1993, and if I'm going to give any credit, it goes back to my own years of adolescence. And God bless those teachers, my own teachers that got me through those years. And so when I look at myself as a learner, I'm not surprised that, my own learning journey landed me in my first teaching position at a middle school, teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So anytime I've ever talked about my digital citizenship journey, it starts with my teaching career. So I know the summit, our first summit was last October here on my college campus in West Hartford, Connecticut. But my story and my journey starts really when I wanted to become a middle school teacher working with young adolescents, because to me, it's about meeting the developmental needs of young adolescents. And that's really, and I feel like as the journey has continued, my focus has always been on students and encouraging student voice. And so when I look at my own teaching career, I was a middle school teacher. I was a middle school principal. I did my doctoral work on young adolescents at Boston College. Became a principal, and then I was an associate professor for the last 10 years working with teachers. And if I am to give credit there, when I was working with I worked with both undergraduate and graduate students. There was a graduate student way before her time. I don't know the exact year. It has to be probably around 2009. I was into, ed tech and social media, not specifically digital citizenship per se, not yet. But this is how the hook. She invited me into her 3rd grade classroom. And so those are, 7 and 8-year-olds. And there was like a tech event. And she had done this grant, and they all had these netbooks. And the event was for parents. And if students weren't able to have somebody special, come into the classroom for the event, she would come to the university and would ask for volunteers. So I had a group of 3rd graders, and that was I had a special group. They all had their netbooks out, and they started typing furiously, and they wanted to know immediately how to spell my name. And so I'm telling them how to spell my first name, and as they're typing it, they said, "We're going to see if you are socially responsible online." And Joanne, I took my breath away because I wasn't aware of anybody doing especially students, 3rd graders, doing a search like that on me. I had never done one on myself up to that point, and I panicked. The cat was already out of the bag. What was going to show up? And the good news is, I grew up in the 80s, so there wasn't much about me. And it was such a teachable moment, and I love the fact that, my interest in really not just about being socially responsible with ed tech, but really diving in deep with the research of digital citizenship started because of this experience with 3rd graders. And so if I'm to give any shout out, it is to that graduate student and her 3rd graders. Her name is Tracy Mercier. She's always been way before her time. And both of us, as a result of all of this, as part of one of my courses, we kicked off the first digital citizenship chat on Twitter. And by that time, it was probably 2011 was our first chat. We just had a chat last night. So that's really, I think, in a nutshell, the start of how I got involved in digital citizenship.
You know what really interests me? You're an academic, but you're actually trying to disrupt education as we know it. Is that a contradiction? Will some of your colleagues or peers perhaps see it that way?
Okay, this is the reason why I left higher education. I took it as far as I could take it for being a disruptor and a ruckus maker. And, I ultimately got to a point where, about social media, that it's just a tool. It's not an add-on. It's not something extra. It's just, another option. And it has to be, when I look at those 3rd graders, I saw I had a responsibility. What happens when these 3rd graders move on throughout elementary school and middle school and high school, and they end up on my college campus, what am I doing to meet their needs as learners? And so there's a disconnect in higher education, and not with all academics, but in the institution itself. And there needs to be, we need to really, we need to shake the tree. And for 10 years I did that, and I ultimately got to a point where I thought, I have made as much possible change on this college campus, and not only on the college campus, but like in classrooms with students that I'll never know their names, with all of these, both undergraduate and graduate teachers in classrooms that, I might never have been step foot in, but I've made all of this significant change in Connecticut, and I felt like I ultimately got to a point where I said, I have a responsibility to actually do more, to go beyond Connecticut. And so this is why, I left higher education, and I've started this Digital Citizenship Institute, which is going to be based on research and professional development. And, we're going to partner with schools and districts and organizations to bring digital citizenship to the forefront. And I feel like that way I'm still doing how my journey began, but the reach will be so much further. And well, with you, Joanne, we're going to continue to, disrupt and make this a priority.
So I'm going to go back into journalist mode here, okay? So social media and the internet are ubiquitous. What do people really need to know that you can share with them? So for social media, to me, is like my ultimate goal, and it's been this way, is how can we use social media to solve problems? And, social media is like the most powerful learning tool. And so, like one of the big lines working with students is, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And so, what I'm doing right now, even as a mother, as an educator and a mother, learning alongside my 9-year-old, we're trying to model, what it takes to use social media to change, and I look at it like neighborhoods and communities. And so, your neighborhood could be your school, it could be your neighborhood, it could be the local, it could be at the state level, it could be national, it's global, it's digital. Ultimately, to me, if you were to ask people to define what does digital citizenship mean, I think, if you get a definition, people say, oh, it's about being socially responsible online. And I see it as more than that. I see this like social justice piece where it's action. It's not something you talk about or you read about. It's not something that like we do stranger danger and we do scare tactics and you should avoid this. We look at social media and digital citizenship as a way to encourage and to change communities at the local, global, and digital level. And when you look out of that lens, it's like, I've said this before, my analogy is always skipping stones. When you skip a stone, it's got that ripple effect. And when you use social media to positively produce change in your own community, it will have that ripple effect. And to me, that is our ultimate goal. So many parents that we know and many parents that we don't know are trying to protect their children from social media by banning it and by not allowing them access, whereas both you and I are allowing and facilitating our kids to embrace social media. So Curran is aged 9 and Bobby is aged 7. How do you kind of square that off in your own mind?
Well, I think that there's just a lot of fear, and this is going to be fear if it's parents, if it's educators, if it's anybody, in the industry. And so if I can't control it, it's, unfortunately, the solution seems to block it or ban it. And that's just something that, of course, safety has to be paramount. It's the first thing that we begin with. But we have to go beyond the safety conversation. I mean, I even look at organizations that just do these scare tactics, red alert, avoid these apps. And, I recently blogged about, there was a post, and it was like, the app is not the problem, it's humanity. And so to me, it's this critical conversation that we need to engage as many people into this conversation about, the choices that I make, whether that's the choices I make as, as an individual, as Marialice Curran, as a mother, as an educator. I want to learn, I want to be part of humanizing the person next to me as well as across the screen. And so for parents and And to use the example of, with my own son, we're learning alongside each other. And, before you get the keys to the car, you have to go to driver's ed. You got to put in road time. It just doesn't happen overnight. And what Curran and I feel like what you're doing with Bobby, this is our road time. And this is our opportunity to have an authentic conversation, to learn together. Like, I think parents, whether it's fear or they're overwhelmed, and I don't know about those apps. You don't need to know about those apps because, there's like an app a day. There's the flavor of the day. So don't ever fall in love with anything in particular because it might change, it's going to change tomorrow. The critical part is that conversation. And even like something as simple as asking, your child or teen, hey, I don't know how to set up the privacy settings on my, like when I take pictures or my phone, and do you know how to do that? And like doing things together, or even just look at this Pokemon Go game. There were no instructions, but kids figured it out. This is to me, whatever the tool is going to be, the conversational piece, both as a parent, as an educator, and an individual, organizations as well, to be part of it.
So you're also co-founder of the Digicit Summit, and it's happening in San Francisco on October 28th. And both Sophie and I are very excited about coming to meet you in Curran again and all our Digicit friends. What is planned?
So it's amazing because the first summit was last October, and within a year's time, we've made it across the pond where I got to meet both of you in the UK at Bournemouth University. And to think that within, 1 year, last October, we were in West Hartford, Connecticut. We've been in the UK, we've been in Wisconsin, and now we're heading to San Francisco. This is, it's a critical conversation, and it's the fact that we've got, speakers coming from Ireland, from Kenya, from India, from Canada, from Spain. Digital citizenship isn't just something that happens or is a concern in one particular area. This hits all zip codes and all time zones. And, we know that we've struck a nerve and that people everywhere, it's a global concern, want to be a part of this conversation. So just like, the summit last year and in the UK, this is about conversation and this is about action. And that we come to the table collectively, and there's multiple stakeholders. And I think that's probably what, what makes us really stand out is that, it's just not educators, or we've got educators, we've got students, we've got industry, we have parents. And so to get all of those stakeholders to the same place at the same time, collectively to the table, and to really look at and examine, what's been done, where we are now, and where are we going in the future, and how do we work as a community to get there.
Shoutouts.
So in this part of the show, I give shout-outs to those who are remarkable online and worth talking about. And in this episode of JSB Talks Digital, Marialice, I am giving this section to you. Who would you like to give a shout-out to in the digital citizenship world?
Joanne, there are so many. I mean, this community has just grown exponentially. I mean, I really, like I already gave a shout out to that Tracy Mercier, and her third grade students. And, I look at like another story that I created a course called Pleased to Tweet You. Are you a socially responsible digital citizen? This was in the fall of 2011. And that course that I developed was a direct result of Tyler Clemente, a student, college freshman who had taken his life. So when I think about like why I got into this, I think of all the students that have taken their life because of how they have been treated online. And I remember specifically with the Tyler Clemente story is the It Gets Better campaign. They came out in full force, and it was, fantastic. But also it made me mad because I thought, why do we have to wait for it to get better? Like, what can I do as one individual to make, what can I do? And then that was the result of this course. And that course, I connected my college freshmen with high school juniors Beth Sanders, she's in Birmingham, Alabama, with her high school juniors, and we did this unbelievable collaborative project all through social media, and we never, obviously, we were in Connecticut, they were in Alabama, we were never able to meet, but the power of using these tools to actually solve a problem. And so if I'm to give shout-outs, it's really goes to students. I mean, I could go through a long list of people, but I really, if anything, it's to amplify student voice and to look at, like even last night, we had a digital citizenship chat on Twitter, and Curran has started Digicit Kids, Digital Citizenship for Kids, by Kids. And we had students as part of that chat last night. And then there was like one question about like what, to share examples. And we shared so many examples of incredible students all around the world that are solving problems. And so one in particular, and I know that Curran is going to share this story at Twitter headquarters, are these two fourth-grade students in Houston, Texas. They did a project at school about trying to go plastic bag-free, and they really got involved, and they started a change.org petition, which is incredible. You're in the fourth grade, and you feel like the project wasn't enough, that you needed to do more. You start this change.org petition to change your community. And the fact that like Digicit Kids wants to recognize the amazing things that, young people do every single day. And we want to amplify that, all the positive stories, because, there are plenty of negative stories out there. So my shout out is all about students.
So tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, about Digital Citizenship Institute, Digicit Kids, and Digicit Summit US.
All right. Well, Joanne, it's all these crazy initials to find me on Twitter. So my whole name happens to be Marialice Bridget Francis Xavier Curran. I know it's a mouthful. Dead giveaway, Irish Catholic from Boston. But those initials, M, B, F, X, C, that's my Twitter handle. That's my own personal website. But to find the Digicit Kids, that's easy. It's just digicitkids.com, and that's my son. He goes by the Twitter handle Curran Central. We have the digicitinstitute.com, and we have the digicitsummit.com. And both Twitter handles for the Summit and the Institute are, Digicit, the Twitter handle, Digicit Institute, Digicit Summit, same thing, Twitter handle for Digicit Kids. So those are the best ways to get a hold of us. And if you just even put in the hashtag Digicit, you can find us that way. That's probably an easy way as well. If you can't remember any of this, I always feel like sometimes I listen to a podcast, I don't have a pen next to me, I missed it. So probably the easiest is just to put that hashtag in, and you'll find Marialice Curran, you'll find Curran Central, Digicit Kids, Digicit Institute, Digicit Summit, and that's probably the best way to find us. We're pretty vocal on Twitter.
And I will also share links to all of those websites and Twitter handles on my blog post as well. Marialice Curran, thank you so much for joining me. I am very excited to reuniting myself with Curran and you and all our great friends in San Francisco in October. And I'm also very excited that we will be collaborating and announcing more of that great news in Twitter HQ in October. So thank you so much for joining JSB Talks Digital.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Thank you, Sophie. And let the conversation continue.
Social media tool of the week.
Given that this episode is all about online reputation and digital citizenship, I thought I'd share a great tool that will help protect your good name online. So the tool that may save your working week is Google Alerts. If people are talking about you or your business online, you will want to know about it. As a small business, a large business, or even as an individual, it's important to monitor your online reputation. Google Alerts is a content detection and notification service offered by the search engine. The service sends emails to you when it finds new results based on your alert. So for example, if I set up a Google Alert for my name, I will get email notifications with links to web pages, newspaper articles, blogs, or research that matches my search term, Joanne Sweeney-Burke. By creating a Google alert, you can get email notifications as frequently as daily to notify you if you've been mentioned online. So what are you waiting for? Go set up a Google alert for your name and for your company. Note, you will have to set up a separate alert for each search term. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you want to read more about what I discussed on the show, log on to digitaltraining.ie and click on podcasts. I'll have links to everything there. If you're interested in becoming a guest on JSB Talks Digital or have an event you want to promote, please just drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie. Don't forget, you can tweet me at tweetsbyjsb, add me on Snapchat JSB Snaps, and you can join my webinar community at bigmarker.com/Digital Training Institute. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke. Thanks for tuning into JSB Talks Digital.